How's everybody doing? I know I've had a rough day, and it's been a rough week for a lot of people. Many people because of the news. I just had a lot of work today at work, a lot of hard remarks coming my way, but that's the way it is. And this is kind of the way I vent and have therapy about it without actually talking and dwelling on it. So Manchester is an outrage. There's no way that we can allow this crap to keep happening. This crazy bullshit where people are saying, we have to just coexist and break down barriers, because the whole problem has started because of people breaking down barriers. Why do barriers exist in life? In order to maintain a sense of control, in order for things to stay in balance. Okay? How many barriers do you think you come up with when you're a kid? Come up against, I should say. I mean, don't your parents put up like a baby gate so you don't go down the basement and mess around in your dad's toolbox or whatever with sandpaper or a bandsaw down on, like, let's say you have a bandsaw in your house. There's not going to be in the toolbox, but you know what I'm saying. And the problem that has to be addressed is immigration. It has to be addressed. And I have a metaphor coming up. But before that, let me talk about this article from last year. That has to do with Manchester, okay? And those of you that are saying, oh, don't blame the immigrants for this. It's not their fault. It's just, a few bad apples or whatever. Fuck that, okay? The problem in general, not just with the bombings, not just with the rape gangs, but with the economic situation in the United Kingdom and all over Europe, is unchecked and unfiltered immigration, okay? If you want a good immigration system, it should be skills-based and not predicated on emotional pleas of a bunch of people claiming that they're fleeing from a war. Now, I get it. A lot of the people are fleeing from a war. That's not really a solution to have them move en masse into other countries where they actually have very little capability to adapt. It's actually a pretty piss-poor strategy, I mean, people have been fleeing from wars for hundreds and hundreds, not even hundreds, millennia. That's the way it is. In the Bible they talk about it, right? The exile to Babylon. And those aren't refugees, by the way. They're called war captives. Okay, this idea that migration due to war has to be solved by letting people in is ridiculous, because the problem is going to keep coming. The war is still happening, okay? And until we force a solution to this war, then allowing immigrants to come in unchecked with virtually no filtering and discernment of who deserves to come and who doesn't, that is going to lead to more wars and more civil unrest. Okay, there's no way to absorb the entire population of a country. Okay, we can't just keep letting people in, whether it's the United Kingdom or the United States or France or Italy. Those countries have a limit, and that limit is framed in economic terms. Okay, how many resources these people can be afforded. That's in terms of housing. It's in terms of healthcare, food, educational resources. You got any number of resources that you have to dedicate to people that have nothing to pay for them with. And I'm not blaming them. That's the way it is. They don't have money to pay for whatever services they're trying to receive in their new country. That's not the fault of the immigrant necessarily. Now, a lot of these immigrants are economic. And anyway, this article says mapped how much immigration your area will see by 2024 and 6 things you should know about it. Now let's scroll through all the fluff. This is from the Telegraph, which is actually one of the better newspapers in England. You have a map. It says in 2024, this area of England, Lancaster, will have 9.3% population growth just from immigration. But it's not the worst of it, okay? Let's go down. It says immigration will be highly concentrated. Here's a graph showing how regions will gain and lose population. Do you notice anything? Now look at London. It says there will be an almost 10% loss of population migrating outside of London from within the UK. So British people are going to leave London in higher quantities, and 20% are going to immigrate. Sorry. You got 10% are going to immigrate into England, and London is already considered basically a foreign city for many British people. It's just going to keep getting worse. Okay? And those of you saying, oh, the people are going to adapt. This guy, the guy who just blew himself up, was born in Britain. Okay? It's not, his parents were migrants. Okay? What type of adaptation is it that after an entire childhood and upbringing in your host country, you still spit on its laws and belief systems and commit an act of violence against young children and teens? Is that adapting to the new circumstances? I don't think so. So I'm going to show you a video. It's not that long, of what exactly is happening.
The relief valve is designed to open in order to relieve excess pressure and then to close once pressure conditions have returned to normal.
Okay, so you saw there what a pressure relief valve is. I'm putting on the screen, if you're wondering, that's Oasis, obviously. They're from Manchester because I want to associate something positive to the city of Manchester in this awful time. Oasis is probably one of my top 5 favorite bands. And why did I put on a diagram and a video of a pressure relief valve, you might ask? What I'm trying to make the case for, okay, and I'll put up some real migration statistics in the comment section, in the description, I mean, is that this migrant crisis is a migrant crisis that's been caused by a number of factors. Yes, it's been caused partially by our wars in the Middle East, but we didn't have a war in the Gambia, and we didn't have a war in many of these countries. We didn't have a war in Serbia since 1997, I think. 1999 was Kosovo. We can't blame all this bullshit on war. Did we have a war in Bangladesh? No. Have we been having wars in Algeria, us, the United States? No. And the British, they didn't have one either. These migrant crises are the countries of origin relieving their pressure. Okay, what do I mean by relieving their pressure? They have this mass of youth, a new generation of people with no opportunity. Why? Because they fuck their own people generation after generation. All they do is hoard their own wealth. They form a corrupt hierarchy of government, put down the common citizen, and then what happens? You have people looking, if anybody has any ambition, they move abroad. Also, you have on the one hand the best of society moving out, and you have the worst of society moving out. Who do you think came here from Cuba? Okay, there's a lot of fantastic people that came here from Cuba all throughout the past 5 or 6 decades that Cuba's been under embargo and that we've been dealing with the Castros. There's a lot of fantastic people. Livan Hernandez, I think Gloria Estefan is Cuban. You could talk about plenty of Cuban Americans that were fantastic. But who else came in? Everybody knows about the Marielitos. That happened in the 80s, or no, I believe it was 1979. President Carter demanded that Fidel Castro release as many political refugees as possible. And what did Castro do? He released all of the actual hardened criminals to come to the United States. And it was a double benefit because he got to screw us and he got to free some space in his prisons for more people. And that's the way dictators function. You know, this whole notion that taking in refugees improves the well-being of the refugees is debatable. Okay, a lot of these refugees, as evidenced by Manchester, as evidenced by many of these crimes that have been happening, the Rotherham issue, I think in England, you can talk about the Rockville rape here in Maryland. I don't live in Maryland, but it was a small story for the national media. These two Salvadoran kids, they sexually assaulted a 14-year-old. When the media found out that it was quote-unquote consensual, they forgot that 14-year-olds don't have the right to consent anyway. Okay, I wonder if they'd like to rethink their whole justification for it. We have a media and a state that will justify anything. They have this fake humanitarian philosophy about it. You have Katy Perry going on network TV, or was it radio, Elvis Duran, and stating that we need to tear down all the walls and coexist. Fuck you, Katy Perry. How about you coexist and you let yourself get sexually assaulted by a gang of criminals? Okay, that's because that's purely what they are. All you care about is what color skin they are. The fact that they're sexually assaulting criminal gangs that groom young women in order to exploit them is, to you, just a minor detail. That's why you live in a mansion that's ringed with high fences and guards. Okay, that's not the way that the British people are living right now. The British people have to deal now with soldiers on their friggin' streets. Okay, do you realize that? This is here. I'm gonna send you to Tommy Robinson. This is, I ripped this video, but I pretty much got the main point that he was making. So here, I guess, take in the point of view of a real British person who's actually trying to uncover and expose the issue of these criminal gangs.
And exactly what you've been saying is our political leaders are working with them. Tonight at 6 o'clock in Manchester, there is a peace vigil being held by the Mayor Burnham. He's a Labour MP called Burnham. Now, he last year shared a platform and a stage with an Islamic group called Men. This is an Islamic radical group. Another MP in this area, who's the Justice Secretary for the Labour Party, she received £5,000 cash given to her for her campaign by an Islamic radical group in this area. The Labour Party are in bed. So we're in bed with the radicals. When we're seeing what right now, the people on our TV who are telling us we will get through this, we will beat this, are the people working hand in hand with the radical Islamic group. The people who are facilitating our daughters to be killed and raped in order for vote bank politics to regain power with the Labour Party. They're the people telling us it will all be all right. As soon as I've started digging, it's took me 10 minutes. I keep asking myself, when I've watched what's happened here, what is it going to take? What is it going to take before Englishmen? It becomes an embarrassing situation to the world to see how weak we have become. When I look now, I'm 20 miles from a town called Rochdale, where there's been a programme where an entire generation of youth were gang raped and tortured by Muslim men. Those Muslim men are now out of prison after less than 3 or 4 years, and they're walking around the town of Rochdale where the girls are that they rape. What has happened to us as a race? What has happened to us as a country that we're allowing this such systematic abuse of our people? We're allowing...
So many of you might be wondering, why am I so amped up about it? I think more people should be amped up around the world. I think this has to be the last straw, because like Tommy said, how many more times does this have to happen before we finally process that this isn't going to stop if we continue with these stupid coexist stickers and these platitudes about how, sow seeds of peace and stay on the sunny side of life and whatever. This is over, okay? We are seeing the degeneration of one of the great civilizations of our world due to the cowardice of a bunch of politicians who don't know what the hell people actually want. And it's evidenced not just by the immigration crisis, it's evidenced by the desire of the people to leave the European Union last year. It was an overwhelming vote, yet the politicians still claim that the people didn't know what the issue was. It's evidenced by the fact that the British national health system is in major dire crisis. It's evidenced by the fact that there's more and more people that are tuning into alternative media, including Tommy Robinson, including a lot of other creators that I watch. And by the way, I'd hope that one day I could have the same type of footprint as some of these guys like Tommy Robinson. But we have to come together as people with like-minded ideas here. You know, I'm not a British person, but I know that if we are to preserve our world as a whole, we can't just subscribe to this kumbaya bullshit. Okay? There has to be rational cooperation. There has to be targeted solutions to a number of problems. And the problem here is immigration, specifically from Muslim countries, specifically because Muslim terror operatives are trying to infiltrate the West, as well as numerous people that actually have no reason to be migrating to the West except for economic reasons, okay? I don't want to hear any of this crap about stereotyping and being intolerant and whatever. We're talking about solving the problems of the British people. And in a country where there's a massive housing crisis, where there's a health crisis, where there's issues of children not being able to go to concerts without getting blown up, where there are, just like Tommy Robinson said, and this is not him making it up, it's been evidenced several places, you have grooming gangs that are exploiting young children, usually girls, and using them as prostitutes. And you want to talk about tolerance and political correctness? No, I prefer to talk about preserving the integrity of British society, and eventually, if we don't stop it in those countries, it's going to run amok here. And it is running amok here. We're seeing more and more of this denial syndrome. People that live in comfortable conditions, they're telling everybody else, oh, why are you so uptight? Why can't you just accept the Muslim quote-unquote race as fellow human beings? I'm explaining to you really simply. I have no problem with the Muslims as people. I have a problem when you're saying that we can't criticize their points of view, sorry. We can't offer our justification for why we believe that modern British parliamentary democracy and sovereignty is the most sustainable and best representative system of government. I have a problem with that. When we can't advocate for our system, but they can pretty much come in and troop their system and step over everybody else. Okay, they can basically proclaim the superiority of their belief system, and we are supposed to hold back and be humble. Well, I don't think that people are in the mood for that. Okay, if their system is so great, how come they're abandoning their home country, which is a whole? Okay, a lot of these countries are absolute shit holes, Algeria, do people want to stay in Algeria? No. Do people want to stay in Mauritania? No. Chad? No. Somalia? Absolutely not. Yemen? No. People want to move to the West because we've been able to accomplish things. When's the last time you bought an Algerian-made automobile? Are there countries that are outside of the West that are successful? Absolutely. Absolutely. Korea, Brazil. Well, Brazil is technically part of the West. Russia has done some important things. China. We're not claiming that this is an inherent issue that the West is always successful and everybody else sucks. But in this case, we're talking about societies that are failed societies, and we're supposed to accept their values, even though their values have led them to ruin. That's not acceptable for me. That shouldn't be acceptable for you either. Okay, if you're out there and, you know, if you're from the United Kingdom or Australia where there's similar problems, I want you to know that there's a lot of Americans that know exactly what you mean. And we know that there's an issue here where you don't want to fight with other people. You just want to be able to go to your job, go to your gym, go to your medical clinic, and not be harassed, and not see constant waste, and not see people coming in and behaving as if they are making the rules now, even though they just arrived. And it's a fact, okay? Immigration crises are an indication of great social turmoil. It doesn't matter who it is. When the Irish fled here from Ireland, okay, and I'm not saying that we should have kept them out of here, but did that make things better in Ireland? No. How do you make crises better? You make it so that the people where the migrants, the states where the migrants come from, you find a way to say to them, no, we're not taking your people. We're not going to be your safety relief valve. We're not going to be your relief valve. You can't just let off your steam on us. You have to solve your shit, and then we'll talk about who's going to come here and what they're going to do. That's the way it should work. Okay? It's not an issue of the feelings. You know, people feel like they need to move. People feel like they're threatened and whatever. If it was true, then why are people still moving from Kosovo into the rest of Europe? Why are so many migrants from inside Europe moving throughout Europe and upsetting the order? That's not the way that a stable society works. If Europe is such a stable society, how come they have so many immigrants going from one European country to another? It doesn't make any sense. Okay? This is an issue that will lead to the downfall of the European Union. And this June, you know, I hope for their sake. I can't make the choice for them, and I can't predict anything. But I hope for their sake, the British people vote for the UK Independence Party or a different Conservative Party, a different party that will fight against this open borders crap, this open borders suicide note that the European Union has tried to impose on them, and that cowardly Conservative Party governments have forced on them. It's time for people to say enough. It's time for them to say, we're going to make the rules and you can't tell us how. We're going to make the rules and that's going to make us a free country again. And that's how we're going to see this country rebuild itself. And if not, then, you know what, I'm sorry, but, you know, the Gallagher brothers that you see on screen, they're not going to be the symbol of British culture anymore. The symbols of British culture are going to come from countries that are, you know, in the Mediterranean region, let me put it that way. You know, we're heading towards a global crisis that makes today look tame by comparison, okay? We cannot have people just go on TV all the time or go on the radio like Katy Perry and dictate to us how we're going to react to tragedies that are becoming the norm. If this is the new normal, then it's time for a change, okay? It's time for a change. If you supported Barack Obama in 2008 saying change we can believe in, then this is the time for a change we can believe in. We want to change to something where children are not getting blown up at a concert, okay? If that's unacceptable to you, then I think that you're going to have a steadily dwindling pool of people to believe in your bullshit ideas. Anyway, I'm sorry if I got a little too, heated today. It's been a very difficult process to hear just the accounts from people. Even though I've been kind of jaded for a long time, and I did have a rough day, just at work. I'm not going to go into it in terms of loads of things to do and problems with something I was working on. But I think that we as a society, we have to start joining hands and actually addressing the problem. Illegal immigration and this migrancy shopping, this immigration shopping, they're not going to lead to a more diverse and harmonious society. They're going to lead to more of this. They're going to lead to more rape gangs and more bombings, especially if nothing's done about them. Okay, so I suggest that there be harsher penalties. I suggest tougher screening. I suggest lower immigration numbers for the United Kingdom. In fact, in their place, I'd probably put a moratorium on all immigration for the foreseeable future. That's it. This is Ramon, Bold Like a Leopard. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And have a great night. And, long live Manchester.